Welcome to Jurassic World.
Good morning, guests. Welcome to Jurassic World Minute, where we visit Jurassic World 1 minute at a time. Bookings for our Jungle River cruise are now open at the kiosk on Main Street. I'm Brad.
I'm Dave.
And we're here today to discuss minute 18 of Jurassic World. Before we get to that, David, thankfully for our Facebook group Behind the Gates, we have some great concept art here for the Indominus enclosure on paddock 11 that we see this minute. Starts off, I suppose, before we get to that itself, we can have a quick look at the teaser advertisement for the Indominus Rex Stadium, bigger, louder, more teeth. Indominus Rex arrives this summer. Just to see what the final goal was for, well, I suppose the exterior of the stadium. Seems a bit bigger than what we have here, but I suppose they've got a lot of building to do to get those walls up higher, and that steel frame around it. Yeah,
the steel frame was definitely getting raised a lot higher than what we see here in the movie, and obviously that is going to wrap up around the top of it, and then we'd have lighting and stadium style seating that was accessed through a pair of spiral staircases on each side.
Something else in the park that's not handicap accessible. Well, I'm sure there may be
I'm sure they had an elevator somewhere.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
It just sort of speaks a lot like the architecture for the Mosasaur feeding show, and that just the massive stadium seating with the well, here it looks like it's glass roof panels above the guests, but just the scope and scale of what they were going to build here at Paddock 11.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also supposed to be, it has frosted glass, which would provide some shelter. And then, of course, the monorail you can see running behind the stadium itself along the mountain.
Yeah, I didn't notice that. Any type of glass up there is just going to magnify heat, isn't it? The sun, you're going to cook.
It depends. I mean, we have kind of frosted plexiglass panels at work in the greenhouse, or in the outdoor garden section, that does provide actually a fair amount of shade from the sun.
Oh, okay. I wonder too if this concept, with this shot, if we're seeing the back of it, because we don't have that big door.
I noticed that too. Yeah, I was wondering if it's either the back or if they were planning on maybe closing up that door at some point and creating an alternative way to access the animal. You know?
Yeah. Maybe there is some sort of sort of like you get with lions and that, where they can come out of the exhibit and into a sort of a caged area.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Although it'd have to be pretty big.
And usually they kind of shelter them like behind a rock face or something like that at a zoo, so that it's not really noticeable by park guests, but the animal knows where it is and can find it, you know?
Oh, it's noticeable. You go into the zoo and you're looking for animals, and they're never out. They're always hiding.
No. I mean, like in the enclosure itself, like it's usually hidden behind a ledge of rocks or something, you know?
Yeah, and that's understandable. We said last minute about animal rights and all that sort of stuff. Just sitting there all day getting yelled at by kids and everything else, and photos and flashes, and you'd want to be able to disappear for a little while as well on a break. But that brings us to some of the stuff here to Behind the Gates is shown. I mentioned last minute the concept art here inside the observation area, the big thick barred windows that we get in concept art, but not in final form. And in this shot too, we do get that big gate at the back, at the rear of the structure as well. So
yeah, and then of course there's also the one that I mentioned last minute where we have the hexagonal full. It's like an aerial shot that shows the full shape of the enclosure itself. And of course, looks like that the outer rim is forested, and then the inner part of it looked like it had at one point been, in fact, open and has started to being encroached within foliage. And then you see the crane in the back, in the very far back, that would have dropped the hunk of meats.
Yeah, and once again, like the film, the gates at the front, going away from that crane, but. I do love the one here with the helicopter landing. I remember seeing that one early on as well.
That one almost just the view of it being kind of encased by the trees kind of almost reminds me of how the paddock looks when you're kind of sneaking up from the front, from the main road entrance of it, where you just kind of have this cattle gate and in between the trees, and then you get this open plain. And then the irex paddock behind that, Yep. But another thing that's interesting is how, like, they have these kind of, like, what would you call them? Like Hollywood-style palm trees that are kind of littering across the inside of the enclosure. Yep. Which is kind of weird, because you do see palm trees in the final version, but it's kind of a lot more mixed with various different kind of palms and native trees as well, Yeah, whereas this one you only see like one or two native trees dotted around, and then the rest of it is all the same style of classic palm tree.
Yeah. And look at the exterior wall here, just how thick and strong. We get later that they got the best structural engineers in the world, but it seems they've just heavily fortified more instead of doing so much of a clever engineering project. I do love the comment here, I prefer electric fences. Yeah.
Well, there is this one concept art image that shows that they had at one point intended to kind of have a bricked up version of just the main wall that we have here. Basically, it would have been, as you said, fortified behind brick and mortar.
Yeah. Plus, we get a couple of shots here too of the fortified observation structure hanging out in the enclosure too. But moving inside, as you said, there's one here too after going with that tower crane, and just way too populated with trees in the middle. And then the other one with the sort of moat system going around the walls, and I've got no idea what those things are on the wall that.
I think there are shock rods. Basically, if she tries to jump the wall and climb it, she's going to get shocked,
She's going to get stabbed, too.
There goes Verizon Wireless's investment.
Yeah, well, transfer it over to Winston's and have Verizon burgers or something off it. Which is one, I suppose we can talk about that at the end of the film. That's one thing I don't know if it's a shame or just it was never addressed at all if we're actually eating dinosaurs or not at this stage.
There's somebody out there who's wondering what they taste like. You just know that. We got this whole COVID business because somebody looked at a bat and asked what wondered what it tasted like. Somebody looked at a dinosaur and said, I wonder if that tastes like chicken.
Then we have reptile influenza sweeping the world or something. Anything else with this concept art? We'll share a link to the concept art in the group on the page. It goes to show, like we were saying before, just it's too damn heavily forested even for concept. But that's one issue we're going to address a couple of times moving forward with the minutes.
The Indominus Rex, our first genetically modified hybrid.
Well, how did you get two different kinds of dinosaurs to,
Oh, Indominus wasn't bred. She was designed. She will be 50 feet long when fully grown. Bigger than the T-Rex.
Rightio, Dave, ready to get into minute 18 of Jurassic World?
I am.
As we enter minute 17 of Jurassic World, Simon Masrani approached the glass of the observation room as ominous music began to play, and he observed that the Indominus Rex was white. But Claire hadn't told him it was white. As we open on minute 18, we can see the reflection of Claire's face in the glass, and she asks him, "Do you think it will scare the kids?" At the 9-second mark, we get the end of our big trailer line. The kids. This will give the parents nightmares. At 22-second mark, we get a view of Indominus's head, its eye in the foliage, looking back at them, and we get a POV shot, seeing Claire and Masrani in the observation room. Simon asks, "Can it see us?" Claire responds, "They say it can sense thermal radiation, like snakes." At the 33-second mark, Masrani comments, "I thought there was two of them." Claire nods. There was a sibling. One didn't survive infancy. Masrani asks, "Where's the sibling?" And Claire says, "She ate it," and hides behind a fake smile. At the 48-second mark, Masrani realises the danger, and says, "So the paddock's quite safe then." Claire nods, and says, "We have the best structural engineers in the world." And as the minute ends, Masrani makes a crude comment, "Yeah, so did Hammond." After a moment of tension with Masrani staring out the window at the hidden irex, Claire leaves the monitor and walks closer to the window to look out the animal as well. And she asks, "Do you think it will scare the kids?" And that's where we get the continuation of this movie line from Masrani to kids. "This will give the parents nightmares," which again they must be able to see more of it than what we've been able to. Which is odd because it's just walking around the pen exactly the same as what the T-Rex or any other animal would do. It's not really doing, or it doesn't seem to be doing anything here that would cause for parents to have nightmares, as Masrani says.
I don't know, when you look at her, you can see that one. She's working things out.
Well, especially when we get to the animal later on, when we see sort of all the quills on her and the just the design of the animal itself. But
I was gonna say, like I said in the last minute, they kind of go for the gradual reveal here, which is kind of a classic trope of movie monsters, where or especially creature features, where you slowly reveal the creature more and more until you just finally reveal it in full.
Yeah, yep, true. Claire looks through the glass here, sort of confused look on her face. "Is that good?" And Masrani sort of raises an eyebrow happily and says, "It's fantastic." Again, we're going to make a fortune with this place. And this is where we get to see part of a head and that large eye watching him. And we also get the eyelid moving backwards and forwards and not up to down like other dinosaurs and animals. Again, one of those scenes we got to see in the trailer of the animal itself, sitting there looking at him. And it doesn't look that white here, but I suppose if it's going into shadow here, where it's sort of got its head down between the trees, there may be, again, either the camouflage starting to kick in or just shadow on the animal to make it look grey.
Yeah. I do remember that eye being kind of the big shot everybody was kind of excited, like, "Oh yeah, look at that! Do you see that? That was the big speculative shot that got everybody interested in the movie."
I probably should have gone to check up the makeup of the animal for the Jurassic Pedia article at the start of this, just to try and narrow down where that different eye movement would come from.
Well, it's a nictitating membrane is what it is, and it's actually something that birds still have today, and it's something very common among reptiles, where it's basically the remnants of the lens where there used to be fish that went over the eyeball when they were in the water, and it's so, I mean, you can see it on alligators and crocodiles and hawks and eagles and stuff like that. I think some of the other animals or dinosaurs do have them. I think we've seen it on the raptors before.
I think we get it when we get to the raptor pen as well. I think one of them does it there, but I know some sort of geckos and that sort of stuff use their tongue because they haven't got the ability for some reason to lick their eyes. I'd just love to see a hawk try and lick its eye. Yeah, I was just going to see with the what all the different bits that went into the animal, if there's something there there may be just a bit of reptilian DNA there or something that would come from. But we get a POV here from the irex itself, looking up at the observation building, again making it look a lot higher off the ground, and that's when Masrani comedically asks, "Can she see us?" Of course she can. She's looking right at you. But also here too, as we're looking up the observation platform, that crack in the window is gone from beside Claire. So
yeah, I do remember that being a movie goof that was pointed out when the movie came out.
Which that may have led to me wondering if there was going to be a jump scare there. The fact that the crack's there and then not. Anyway, Claire says that it can sense thermal radiation like snakes, and that's when he says, "I thought there were two of them," and Claire says there was a sibling in case this one didn't survive infancy. Masrani asks, "Where's the sibling?" and she replies, "She ate it," and sort of scoffs and turns to him smiling, which probably her acting to the animals sort of not being that intelligent if they're going to eat each other or something like that. But surprising too when she says it can sense thermal radiation like snakes. I'm surprised we didn't get predator vision here or something of if it's what it's actually seeing of Masrani standing in the window and not what we would see or the camera sees.
I do remember that people saying that this speculating rather that the sibling was still alive and that it would appear in the sequel. That it just was using its camouflage ability the whole time, and that's why we never saw it.
Well, I mentioned when we had the two eggs, you're going to show two animals at the start, you need to have two animals at the end or something. Have that smoking gun pay off, but yeah, we'll see. We've still got a third one to. I'm sure they'll do some backflips to get it back on screen if need be. I wonder if it can lay down the ground, sense vibration through the ground on its belly like a snake as well.
That'd be interesting.
I don't know how flat it could lay down the ground though. Even just put its hand down the ground, sense it through its hand. I'm pretty sure we mentioned that stuff with the eggs, with the sibling. We get more of this sort of spooky score here playing as well. It sort of reminds me a little bit of like Jaws, just that I don't even know what the instrument is, but sort of just that rumbling.
I think it's a horn of some sort.
Yeah. But Masrani asks Claire, so the paddock's quite safe then. He's starting to get a little bit concerned, and Claire nods her head. We have the best structural engineers in the world. And as the minute ends, Claire walks back to the monitor she started on, and Masrani sort of jokes, "Yeah, so did Hammond." Which, I wonder how much of the Jurassic incident he actually knows. Because it wasn't really structural engineer issues, unless though that T-Rex paddock was designed to stand up even though it had no power going through it. It's something we probably won't know and probably will never know.
I do remember that, like, some of the structures. I remember at one point on Jurassic Park Legacy, we went through some of the kind of different things we noticed that were issues with the park beyond just the Nedry sabotage and the raptors breeding, and things like, well, the Ford Explorer, for example, leaked. I remember I noticed that it was leaky at one point during the T-Rex attack, and the concrete wasn't quite cured yet because the post should not have been able to bent that easily in solid concrete, you know.
Yeah.
And there's just various things like how you, like the moat instead of going perpendicular with the paddocks should have gone parallel with them like they do in the novel, or have been more sunken in or anything like that, you know?
Well, yeah, and it's sort of one of those issues jumping between the novel and the film itself. If that conversation between Hammond and Gennaro didn't happen in the Jeep and they confirmed that there are concrete moats and all that sort of stuff, again, yes, you've got a major viewing area for the Tyrannosaur here with the goat to come in and try and get its attention, and you can let it walk right up to the fence without any controls in place to stop it touching the fence. So,
or even any controls to kind of disallow guests from getting up and just wandering around the park. You know, I mean, we saw them do that.
Yeah,
we saw them jump out of the car and start walking up to the dinosaurs. It's a major safety issue.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's from the novel or if it was from that stuff you're doing on Legacy